Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to the Ableton training. My name is Matt McCoy. I'm an Ableton certified trainer from Chicago. I'm a worship leader and songwriter, and I'm the founder of loopcommunity.com. Glad you're joining me today for this Ableton live training. We're going to get you going with how to use tracks in worship, and we're going to give you an overview on how to use Ableton Live specifically. If you're wanting to get into the world of running tracks in worship, you are definitely going to hear about Ableton Live. Ableton Live is the staple software out there for running tracks live. Kind of like how Microsoft Word, anybody who's writing a paper or a document, they know what Microsoft Word is. Well, anybody who's running tracks knows what Ableton Live is. So I'm glad you're here today because we're going to talk about how to use Ableton Live in your worship service. So we're going to go and get started here. If you haven't heard of loopcommunity.com before, I just recommend to check it out. Loop Community is a place where you can go to download tracks for worship songs. So we have community tracks, which means these are tracks for worship that were created by worship leaders from all around the world. We sell master tracks for worship, and these are the actual tracks from the record label. We sell premium tracks, and these are tracks that Loop Community created. So if you're looking for a track, like let's just say we're looking for You Make Me Brave, and you can choose which version of the song you want. We're going to go ahead and search for You Make Me Brave. I'm going to pull up the Bethel music version, and you'll see that here's all the different tracks. We're going to play the premium track. You can kind of get a sample for that. But this is where you're going to go to actually download tracks to use inside of Ableton Live. All right, we've got community tracks. These are all really cool because they're created by worship leaders. We sell patches and presets for every song. And we also sell the masters if you want those as well. They're a little more expensive. So let's get into Ableton Live. Now, if you don't have Ableton Live, you can download it by just going to, up here in the top right corner, there's a link that says Store. And in the store, you can go to the software section, and we sell Ableton Live. It works for Mac and PC. And everything I'm going to show you today, you can do with the intro version of Ableton Live. Up here, it's only $99, so the price shouldn't scare you. It's not like an $800 piece of software that it's going to break your bank. $100 works for Mac and PC, and all you need is this one right here. Everything I show you today, you're going to be able to use with that version of the software. If you're going to get into creating your own tracks and recording an album, then you might want to download Live 9 Standard or Live 9 Suite because you get more sounds with that. But let's go ahead and dive right in to Ableton Live so that you can see how it works. So this is Ableton Live, and when you first open it up, it looks like this, and this is called Session View, all right? Session View looks a little bit like Microsoft Excel, where you've got columns, and each column here is an instrument. And then you've got rows that go across from left to right, and these are called scenes. Now there's another view in Ableton Live, and it's called Arrangement View. And let's go click this icon in the top right corner. And that will bring you to Arrangement View. And Arrangement View looks kind of like your standard music software, like GarageBand, Logic. And this is where you can bring in, audio tracks, and they go down a timeline from left to right. And you can, edit them and play them back from left to right. Now this view is great for recording and creating your own tracks. You can also run tracks from this view, and I'll show you how to do that a little bit later. But the view we're going to start with for running tracks is Session View. I think it's important to know both views and how they work together. So, there's really two camps. There's people who run their tracks in Session View, this view, or people who run their tracks in this view, Arrangement View. We're going to start in Session View, all right? So, like I said, this is made up of tracks that are in these vertical columns here. So think of these as your instruments. And then think of each row that goes across as a song. So right here is our set list. We've got, about 8 songs here in our set. I'm going to go ahead and just delete by hitting the delete key. We're going to do 3 songs in our set. All right. And then over here, I'm going to just delete these tracks until we have just 1 track left. I'm hitting the delete key to do that. And we're going to start with going just bringing in some tracks. And as we do this, we're going to build a set together. And as I build the set, you'll kind of see how you can use this in worship this weekend. So let's build a set as if we're actually going to use it like tonight, okay? On the left-hand side of the screen, this is called your live file browser, all this stuff over here. Now, where it says categories, these are where you're going to find, if you're going to be recording music with Ableton Live, then this stuff really will matter to you. This is where you'll find like drum sounds and pad sounds and different sounds for recording, audio effects, reverbs, delays, compressions, MIDI effects. And that would be a whole other class, and we're going to teach a class later on about that. But for running tracks live, all you need to know is this section right down here. This is called Places, and it's a way to access files on your computer as shortcuts. So I have folders that are on my computer where I store all my tracks that I download from Loop Community. I've got a folder on my computer called My Worship Songs. And this is where, when you download tracks from Loop Community, you can see I have a bunch here. I have some community tracks, I've got some master tracks, and I have some premiums, which we're going to use today. You'll notice that when you download a track from Loop Community, they come in folders like this. They're called the song title, and then you've got the BPM, so the tempo of the song, which is 99 BPM, and then the key of the song, which is D, and then this says this is a multi-track. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag in these audio files. Let's go ahead and open up the heavens. And here's what you see when you open up a track that you buy from Loop Community. You've got the song title, right? It says what the instrument is. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in the cue file by just clicking and dragging and dropping. We're going to right-click and rename this track to cues. And this is going to be our little guy that says, verse 2, 3, 4. That's going to be really important. So we're going to drag that in. Now what we're going to do is let's go and right-click over here. We're going to rename this to Open Up the Heavens. So right-click, and we're going to call this Open Up the Heavens. All right? So we dragged in, we named the song. Now what we're going to do is go and drag in the audio files. So we can hear this. I'm going to go ahead and stop the audio that's playing over here. All right. So let's go and drag in the other instruments we need. Now, we could drag them in as we need them. So let's just say we need an acoustic. You can drag and drop. And notice it's going to create a new audio track for you. Drag and drop the bass. It creates a track. Now, if you want, you could get really organized by renaming these to acoustic and then renaming this to bass. But we're not actually going to do that for now, just for sake of time. Now you can drag in the instruments you want, or you can drag them all in at once by holding Shift and select everything here. And then I'm going to use Command to deselect the ones I don't want. And we're going to just drag these in like this. Now notice it's trying to drop them in vertically. We want them to drop in horizontally, so I'm going to hold Command and then drop. And it created a bunch of tracks for me. Now notice how there's a little play button on every single audio clip here. You don't want to hit that, because if you do, what you're going to end up getting is all of the tracks are going to play, but they're going to play at different times, which is a problem, because now they're out of sync with each other. So instead, you want to use the play button that's on the song itself over here. So I'm going to hit play, and it's going to play all those songs, all those clips at the same time.
3, 4.
Now you've got a mixer down here where you can solo tracks. If you want to listen to the bass or the drums or the guitar, you can turn tracks down by doing that.
4.
You can mute tracks by using this. But we brought in all the tracks for that song. So let's go ahead and bring in another song. We're going to go ahead and let's go and find another song. Let's do Unstoppable God. So I'm going to right-click and go to Rename. We're going to call this Unstoppable God. And let's go ahead and bring in the tracks for this song. So I'm going to bring in the cues first, all right? And then I'm going to bring in everything else by holding Shift and then using Command to deselect the ones I don't want. Now again, we don't want to drop them like this because they're dropping in vertically, which would not work. So we need to drop them in horizontally, so hold Command and drop. And it creates the tracks you need. You can hit play on the song to hear it.
Intro. 2, 3, 4.
All All right, so Unstoppable God is playing.
Verse 2, 3, 4.
Awesome. Now let's go ahead and bring in our second song, and it's going to be You Make Me Brave. So I'm going to right click here, rename, and go to, type it in You Make Me Brave. And now let's make this one a little more realistic. So because most people are playing with a full band, you're not going to need all those tracks. So let's bring in the cues first, and then let's just go through this list. Well, our bass player called in 6, so we don't have a bass player, so I'm going to bring that in. Our drummer, we have a drummer. We don't have an electric guitar player, so I'm going to bring in the guitars, all right? And we need a pad and percussion, and we need piano, actually, and we need the rest. So we just didn't need the drums. So let's go ahead and hit play for You Make Me Brave.
2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
And now You Make Me Brave is going to be playing.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
Cool. So now that we've brought in all of our tracks here, I'm going to go ahead and just go ahead and close this down over here on the left-hand side. We can just hit this arrow and it'll hide that section. So now we have 3 songs in our set. Now I can customize these if I want. So we could highlight these like this and right-click if we want to kind of customize the colors of these clips by right-clicking. And I think it's kind of nice to colorize these because it helps to kind of visually see what song is what. You can also change the color of the track or the song title by just right-clicking and you'll get that color palette. You can also change the color of the track titles. I like to make those white. And now you can kind of just see how it's a lot easier to see what song is what. Now we can reorganize the songs by just dragging these around. So if you want to do Unstoppable God first, drag it to the top, and it moves all the clips with you. So now you're probably wondering, well, wait, where's the metronome? Because we don't have a metronome here. In the top left corner of the screen, this is your metronome control center, okay? And this shows you can tap a tempo in, you can type a tempo in. This is your metronome or your tempo, your BPM. You can write it in. This is your time signature, so we're in 4/4. And then this button turns the metronome on and off. So let's go ahead and turn it on, and then play Open Up the Heavens and see what happens. I'm going to make that our first song. Here we go. So we hear the metronome. That's good.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
So the problem, right, is that the metronome is not in time with the tracks. And the reason the metronome is not in time with the tracks is because the metronome was playing at 124 BPM, but the tracks are at 99 BPM. So we need to tell Ableton Live, okay, when we play Open Up the Heavens, change the metronome to 99 BPM. So I'm going to right-click on Open Up the Heavens and go to Edit Launch Tempo. Launch is the same word as play. So we're basically saying, okay, when I play Open Up the Heavens, or when I launch it, change it to, I'm going to type in 99 and hit Enter. Now let's hit play.
Intro.
You'll see the metronome
3,
changed
4.
to 99, and the tracks are now in time with the click. Now let's do the same thing for Unstoppable God, because if I don't tell it what to do, it's just going to stay at 99. So let's right-click, Edit Launch Tempo, and type in 132. Hit Enter. Now you can, for those of you who like shortcuts, you can also just rename this from the beginning. So you could just type in You Make Me Brave, semicolon, 69 BPM, and hit Enter. And that'll work just the same. So let's play Unstoppable God. You'll see the metronome change to
Intro
132.
2, 3, 4.
Cool, right? Now you can also change the time
2,
signature
3,
if you need
4.
to. If you want, instead of 4/4, if you want 2/4, you can do that, or 2/8, right? To maybe give the 8th note to your drummer. And you can assign that time signature by just right-clicking and go to Edit Launch Time Signature. And I can just type in 2-8. And now this song will always be 2/8. So let's make this one 4/4, 4-4. Right-click, Edit Launch Time Signature. And I'm going to make this one 4/4. Actually, let's make this one 2/8 as well. Cool. So now when I launch Open Up the Heavens, it switches to 4/4.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
You can expand these if you want by just dragging like that. You can also group instruments together. Let's just say you want all your guitars together. Well, you can highlight the tracks like this, right-click, and go to Group Tracks. And it will give you a group that now you could rename this to be, electrics. And then you can close that group. And later when we get into audio routing, you could send just that group out of its own output. Or you can turn the volume down of just that group. So let me ungroup these by right-clicking Ungroup. Now let's talk about something about changing volume of clips. In general, you do not want to change the volume of these faders, because what will happen is if you change the volume of these faders, it's going to affect every song that's in that column. So the problem is if you're like, well, on Open Up the Heavens, that stuff's too loud, but then on Unstoppable God, it's too quiet. So I like to leave all these faders at 0. Okay, you can just hit delete, by the way, to reset a setting. So you can just click on it, hit the delete key, and it resets it back to default. Instead of using these faders to turn down a track, you double click on the clip, and this brings up the clip overview window. And there's a volume knob right here. It's a gain knob, and you can, or a switch, or a fader, and you can turn up just that individual clip, so it doesn't affect everything else. All right, it's just affecting that individual instrument. Now, also the same thing goes with muting. You don't want to mute like this because it will mute everything that's in that column. So if you want to mute just an individual clip, just right-click and go to Deactivate Clip, and that will deactivate the clip for you. If you want to reactivate it, just go to right-click and click Activate. Cool? So we've talked about making your set list, changing your tempo and time signature, changing volume. What happens if you get into rehearsal and you're like, well, I really need to change the key or tempo of a track. How do we do that? Well, if you decide like, well, I want to do Open Up the Heavens at 110 and then hit play, or change it like this, 110, the problem is the metronome's going to change, but the tracks don't change. So if you want to change the tempo of a track, you need to use something called warping. Now, just a heads up, if you are brand new to Ableton Live and you're installing Ableton on your computer, the first setting you want to change is in Live Preferences, and you want to go to Warping. And this setting right here that says Auto Warp Long Samples, make sure that that is turned off, okay? Because if you leave this on, when you drag these clips in, it's going to auto warp things, and things are not going to be in time. So turn that off. If you drag in clips and you're like, wow, nothing's in time with the metronome or with themselves, make sure this is off. Okay, so once that's off, you drag your tracks in. What warping is it's a way of time stretching audio, so slowing audio down, speeding audio up, without it losing its quality or its timing. And if you've ever heard like a Katy Perry song and a Taylor Swift song that are at 2 different keys and 2 different tempos, but somehow they mix them and remix them together, well, they're probably using software like Ableton Live to do that. So we're going to use warping in our favor with these tracks to change the tempo and the key of them. The first thing you want to do is you want to set the tempo up here to the original tempo of the song. So the original tempo of Open Up the Heavens is 99. So let's set this to 99 and hit enter. Now you'll notice that down here, when you double click on a clip, it brings up the clip overview window of that clip. And there's a button here that says warp. And when you hit that warp button, what it's going to do is it's going to analyze the audio. And anytime it sees a transient or a downbeat, it puts a little marker like that. All right? Now that it knows where the downbeats are, it'll know how to change the tempo of that track. Now, I only did it for that one clip, so we need to do it for all of them. Otherwise, they won't be in time with each other. So I'm going to hold Shift and select all of these clips and then turn on warping, okay? So now it just warped all of the clips and Open Up the Heavens. And you'll know it warped it correctly when you double click on it. And if this little white box that says segment BPM, if that says 99, if it says the original tempo, then you're good. So let's go ahead and hit play. And now that it's warped,
Intro.
we can change the tempo however we want. I could speed it up. I could slow it down. You could speed it all the way up to 382, and believe it or not, it'll actually still be in time, which is pretty cool. So let's just say we're gonna play it at 105.
2, 3, 4.
And let's just say that you also want to change the key. Well, while that it's warped, you can also use this transpose knob down here. And this transpose knob goes in half steps, up and down. So I'm going to highlight all the tracks, I'm going to select them, and I'm going to transpose this song.
Intro. 2, 3, 4.
So now we're transposed 4 half steps up.
2, 3, 4.
So the only thing you probably don't want to transpose are those cues, because otherwise you'll get something like this.
Intro. 2, 3, 4.
Which sounds a little weird. Or something like this.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
You don't want to do that. So I would just transpose the instruments. And you really also need to only transpose the instruments that have a key in them. So you wouldn't need to transpose drums or anything like that. So again, highlight the tracks and then just go ahead and change this knob. These go half steps. So if we were in the key of D, now we're in the key of C. Let me hit C now.
2, 3, 4.
You can also change the sound. Right here, this is the warp mode, and complex sounds better than beats. So I just changed it to complex.
Verse. 2, 3, 4.
But you can transpose these tracks, however much you want, just to fit whatever key you need to play it in. So let's go ahead and do a warping again for another song, just so you guys can catch it. Let's go ahead and warp Unstoppable God, all right? Now, if you don't need to change the key or the tempo of a song, then you don't even need to warp. Don't even mess with it. But if you do need to warp, here's how you do it. Remember, the first step is to set the original tempo up here in the top left corner. So the original tempo is 132 for Unstoppable God. Hit enter, and now select all your tracks or all your clips for that song, holding shift, and then hit warp. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and just change them all to complex, and that's it. It's warped. Which means
Intro.
if I want to change the
4.
tempo, I can do that. And so I would just change it over here, edit launch tempo, and just say, well, now we're going to do it at 130 or 140 instead. And now it'll launch at 140.
Intro. 2, 3, 4.
And it'll be in time with the click.
Verse. 2, 3, 4.
Pretty cool, right? Okay, so now that we have warping set, let's talk about audio routing. How in the world do we get the audio out of this computer into our sound system? Well, we have a diagram at loopcommunity.com that you can use, and if you go to Loop Community and then go down to Learn, we have a few diagrams. This is basically how you could set it up a very easy way. We're going to use our headphone jack, and the headphone jack has 2 outputs to it, right? You've got the left side and the right side. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to pan the click and the cues to the left, and then we're going to pan all of our tracks to the right. We're going to plug those into 2 different DI boxes. The click, you send that to your in-ear monitors however you can. And then the tracks, or the loop, you send to the front of house, and you tell your sound guy to crank it. You have to start thinking of your computer as another instrument in your band, all right? So how do we actually pan that stuff in Ableton Live? Well, in Ableton, in the bottom right corner, there's a button that says I/O. And when you open this button, this opens the outputs and the input settings for every channel in Ableton Live. Now, it looks a little confusing, but it's pretty simple. The boxes up here at the top, the white boxes here that say external in or audio from, that's for if you're recording music with Live. We're not using those boxes now because we're not recording music with Live, so let's just ignore those. What we need is the audio to. Where's the audio in this track going? So right now it says that the audio on all of these tracks is going to the master. The master is over here on the right-hand side of the screen. And right now it says the master is going out 1 and 2. This is just something you're going to have to remember. The left-hand side of your headphone jack is 1, and the right-hand side of your headphone jack is 2. So right now, all of the tracks are going to the master, which is going out both the left and right side of my headphone jack. I'm going to change that to, I want to have my master to go out 2, because I want all my tracks to go out the right side of my headphone jack. Now the cues we're going to have to set manually. And we're going to go down here, we're just going to go to external out instead of the master, and we're going to change this to 1. So now the cues are going to go out output 1. The click goes out over here, what's called cue out. We're going to change this to output 1. The volume of your click is adjusted by this little blue knob down here. So you can turn the volume of the click up and down right here. Let's go ahead and hit play and see what that sounds like.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
So you can hear that it's actually panned. I can change the volume of the click by adjusting it here.
2, 3, 4.
All right. And my tracks are going out the right-hand side. Let's try another song, okay?
Intro 2, 3, 4.
Now you can set the outputs of these tracks all individually by going external out and then go 2. But I didn't think there was a need to because I have them all set to go out the master anyway. All right? And the master is set to going out 2. Now, just to set this all back, let's just set this all back to 1 and 2. All right? Just for the video. But that's how you set your outputs. Now, if you want to use an interface to use multiple outputs, you can do that. If you go to Loop University, go to Learn, there's another diagram that is a multi-channel diagram. And you could plug in a USB interface that gives you maybe 8 outputs, and you would just set the external out on each of those channels to the output that you want. All right? So it would be like this. You'd go here and go to external out, and if you had an interface plugged in, you would have a bunch more outputs here. So that's a great way if you are in a setting where maybe you want your sound guy to mix the tracks instead of you mixing them here, then that's a great option for you. And you can get as geeky and nerdy with this stuff as you want. So that is outputs. Now, if you are at a church that doesn't have in-ear monitors, a very simple way to get in-ear monitors for your band is by doing the exact same setup here, and then you can buy like a cheap 2-channel mixer, and you put that mixer back by your drummer, okay? And then you plug the click into channel 1 of the mixer, and then whatever is plugged into the monitor that's sitting back by your drummer, you plug that into channel 2. Then you plug a pair of headphones into the mixer, and now your drummer has a in-ear monitor mix, and they can on channel 1 turn up the volume of the click, and on channel 2 they can turn up the volume of whatever it was you were sending to the drummer back in the drummer's monitor mix. All right, so that's a great way where, if you know, it's a cheap way to get in-ear monitors to your drummer.
Intro
And
2, 3,
if
4.
you could do that with every person in the band if you needed to, if you don't have in-ears. As long as the drummer hears the click, you're fine. You're good to go, okay? As long as the drummer hears the click and he clicks you off, then you can play with these tracks. You don't have to have in-ear monitors to do this. All right, let's talk about how to trigger these songs. So let's just say that you want, you know, when you look up on stage, you might see sometimes a drummer up there triggering the tracks.
Pre-chorus 2, 3.
Or you might see the keyboard back, or the computer back by the keyboard player. If you want your drummer or your keyboard player to trigger the tracks, what you don't want to have happen
3, 4.
is you don't want them in between songs trying to, you know, get their mouse and then clicking on the next song. So what we're going to do is instead, we're going to set up key commands for them to make it easy. In the top right corner of the screen, there's a button that says key. And when you click that, anything that you see that turned orange can be assigned to a keyboard shortcut on your keyboard. So I'm going to click on Open Up the Heavens, and I'm going to press 1 on my keyboard. And you'll see that it assigned 1 to Open Up the Heavens. Unstoppable God, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to press 2. And then You Make Me Brave is going to be 3. Now I'm going to close key mode. And when you press 1, it's going to start song 1.
Intro 2, 3,
Spacebar
4.
will kill the tracks, stop it, and then they can press 2 and start song 2. And you don't even have to
Intro,
use your mouse
3,
at all.
4.
Or button 3,
1,
and it'll start
2.
song 3.
1, 2, 3, 4.
All right? So let's just say, though,
Intro,
that you
3.
are the worship
4.
leader and you want control of the tracks. And when I lead worship, that's what I like to do. So what we did is at Loop Community, we're like, you know what? We need to create a device that, you know, if I'm playing guitar leading worship, I don't have my hands free. So how can I do that? How can we do something with my feet? So at Loop Community, we developed a foot controller called the Looptimus USB foot controller. And this was designed specifically for worship leaders who are running tracks in Ableton Live for worship. So I'm going to show you how it works. It's USB powered. It works with any MIDI software, including Ableton. And I have one here that I'm going to pull up and show you how you can program it. So let me go and pull up the video. This is the Looptimus. And the way that it's set up is that you've got 20 pages. And each page has 6 buttons that you can assign to different songs. So essentially, you could have 20 pages with 6 songs per page. And then you have a global stop button to stop all your tracks completely. So let's go ahead and set this up. This is very easy. All you do is just like the MIDI mapping, instead of hitting key, we're going to hit the button that says MIDI right next to it. And now anything that you see that turns purple can be assigned to a controller like the Looptimus. So I'm going to click on Open Up the Heavens, and then I'm going to press 1 on the Looptimus. And you'll see that it assigned this button to Open Up the Heavens. Unstoppable God will be this button, and You Make Me Brave will be this button. And then I'm going to make my global stop button right here the stop button. And now when I leave MIDI mode, I can press this button, and it will start the song for
Intro
Open
2,
Up the Heavens.
3, 4.
And then when I press this button, it'll start
Intro
Unstoppable
2, 3,
God.
4.
And this button will
1,
do You Make
2,
Me Brave.
1,
And
2,
then if you need
3,
to stop
4.
your tracks completely, just hit the stop button here, and it will kill
Intro
everything.
2, 3.
All right? Now, another way you could set it up, which I like to do, is I just do song 1 is this button, and then I go to song 2. So let's actually map it like that. I'm going to delete these mappings by just clicking on it and hit delete. I'm going to make song 1 this button. Then song 2, I'm going to go to the next page and make it this button. And then song 3 is going to be this button. And that's it. So now I've got, if I want to start song 1, I go to song 1.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
And then when I want to start song 2, I go to song 2. And it starts song 2, and I do this with my feet.
3, 4.
And then song 3.
2.
Very cool, right?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Now, you can...
Intro 2, 3.
some guys like to actually set this up so that each song has different sections of the song. So let's just say it's like song 1, and then we've got intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, outro, and then stop. Let me go and show you how you can do that. I'm going to go ahead and open up another session that I have already made. And this is going to be, let's go ahead and pull it up. So it looks very familiar, right? We have a bunch of songs that play all the way through from left to right. Well, instead what we're going to do is for this song down here, I have it broken up into sections so that each section of the song has its own row. And the way that Ableton Live works is that when you tell Ableton to do something, it waits 1 bar to do what you told it to do. So when I tell it to go to the next row, it's going to wait 1 bar. And you can always change that up here in the global quantization settings by just changing this to 4 bars or 2 bars. but it's by default at 1 bar. So that means when I click Forever Rain, and I hit play, when I tell it to go to the chorus, it waits to the next downbeat. All right? Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up Looptimus so that each section of the song has its own assignment. So I'm going to go to page 3, and these are actually already assigned, but this is the start, and then verse, and chorus, interlude, bridge. So let's go and try this out. So I can trigger the different sections of the song with the Looptimus pedal. So you might be wondering, well, how in the world do you actually break your song up into sections? And so let me go ahead and show you that, because this is something where people are going to want to customize tracks. You might buy a track and you're like, well, I actually really want to do a double chorus there, or I want to, change how that works, the arrangement of the song. Well, let me show you how you can actually customize a track, and we're going to use Arrangement View to do that. So I'm going to go to File, New, and we're going to start with a brand new set. And we're going to go to Arrangement View, and I'm going to just delete these tracks because we don't need them. I'm going to delete these reverbs and delays. We don't need those. And let's go ahead and bring in the song that we're going to want to customize. So on the left-hand side of the screen, I'm going to choose a premium track, and we're going to customize Open Up the Heavens. And let's go and just drag in all of these tracks, all right? Actually, I'm going to first bring in the click and cue, or just the cues, by just drag and drop. And then let's bring everything else in by highlighting and then deselecting what we don't want, and drop them in like that. Now, it's important to change the grid to 99. So up here at the tempo box, you want to make sure that it's set to the tempo of the song, because right now if I hit play, the click is not lining up, and it's not assigned to the grid, which means that if I start cutting things up, it's not going to be in time. So I'm going to set this to 99, hit enter, and you can see it actually locked into the grid like that. All right, now let's just say
Intro,
to customize
2,
this track,
3, 4.
I'm wanting to get rid of that like blank space right here. Well, we're going to use something called the loop bracket. This right here is called the loop bracket. And what you can do is you can set it so it hugs that time like that, and then right click and go to delete time. And it's going to delete all of the time that's within that loop bracket. Let's hit play.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
Okay, cool. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add markers for where places in the song here, where the sections are. There's a little button here that says set, and when you click that set button, it's going to add a little flag. Then now you can right click and rename it to be whatever the section of the song is. So rename this to verse, because I believe that's the verse. Let's listen to it and see.
Verse 2, 3, 4.
That's the verse. Over here is the intro, so let's go ahead and
Intro 2,
right click.
3, 4.
There's the intro. Over here
Pre-chorus.
is the pre-chorus.
3, 4.
I'm going to right click and rename this to pre-chorus. This is probably the chorus coming up.
Chorus 2, 3, 4.
And again, I'm just hitting this little set button, and it adds a marker that I can then, I'm guessing this is going to be the intro.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
Yep. And then this is going to be the verse again, I bet. So I like to kind of do the whole song. For sake of time, we probably will not. Well, why not? Why not?
Chorus 2, 3, 4.
Hit the set button.
Chorus 2, 3, 4.
Here's another chorus.
Intro 2, 3.
Here's the
4.
intro.
Bridge.
And then
2,
here's the bridge.
4.
Okay, so you could like do this for the whole song, all right? And now what's really cool is that if you're going to run tracks in in arrangement view, you can actually load in your set list down the timeline from left to right. So I could put my next song over here. And what's awesome is with Looptimus, you can actually assign buttons to trigger the different sections of the song. So by going to MIDI, okay, go to MIDI, and I'm going to set the intro of my song to be this button. I'm going to set the verse to be this button. I'm going to set the pre-chorus to be this button. The chorus is going to be this button. And let's go to the bridge, and we will make the bridge this button. And if I had done more, we could have made the outro the last button. But now I can leave MIDI mode and hit play.
Intro, 2,
And when I
3,
use these
4.
buttons, I can go to different sections of the song. So let's just say we want to go back. We want to go to the verse. Let's go to the chorus or the pre-chorus. Or let's go back to the verse. And notice it's waiting one bar to do what I tell it to do. There's the chorus. Let's say you want to go back to the intro. So you can use the controller to be spontaneous in Ableton Live by mapping the controller to those different sections of the song. Now let's go back to customizing this track. Let's just say you're like, I really want to shorten the length of this intro. Well, you can just use the loop bracket to highlight half of the intro, like this. Right click and go to delete time. And then let's say, it looks like it got rid of my marker too, so let's go ahead and add that back in again. I'm going to right click and go to intro, or type in intro. Let's just say you're like, I want to do 2 choruses right here instead of 1 chorus. Well, you can highlight it like this and right click and go to duplicate time. And now it's going to give me 2 choruses back to back. Now it gave me a cue here that
Intro, 2.
which says intro because that was the end of the chorus, but I'm just going to drag this back and that'll give me
Chorus,
another chorus cue. Or you could just delete it if you don't want the cue at all. So now I have 2
Chorus,
choruses
2, 3,
back to
4.
back. Let's just say I want to put that chorus cue back in. I can highlight this and copy and then paste. And it put the chorus cue right back in.
Chorus, 2, 3, 4.
So I'm kind of customizing the track here. Let's just say I want to do, another intro here. I can right click and go to duplicate time. I need to get rid of this cue here, so let's delete that. But I could, let's just go and copy this intro cue because we still want a cue to let everybody know where we're going.
Intro, 2.
And now we have 2
3,
intros
4.
back to back. So this is one way you could run tracks in this view. It takes a little bit more time to set up a set list in this view because you'll need to bring in all your tracks down the timeline from left to right. So you'll have a long timeline of all your worship set. And it takes a little bit more to set up, but if you're going to be spontaneous with your tracks, this is a great way to do it.
Pre-chorus, 2, 3, 4. Chorus, 2, 3, 4.
So let's just say I've customized this track and now I'm happy with how it sounds. And this is the arrangement we're going to use now for the rest of, eternity at our church. Then what I'm going to do is export these as new audio files, as my custom arrangement audio files. So I'm going to select all these tracks and collapse it. And what you'll need to do is you're going to need to rename these tracks to what they're called. So I'm going to just hit rename or Command R. And I'm going to go ahead and type in cues and then hit the down arrow, acoustic, down arrow. All right. And I got to rename all these because when you save these tracks as new WAV files, it's going to use the track title as the file title. So I'm going to go ahead and rename all these. I'm just hitting down arrow, Command R. Love keyboard shortcuts. And now I'm going to just do a Command A to select everything like that. And then go to File, Export Audio. And now I can choose what am I exporting. If I export the master, it's just going to give me one audio file that has everything mixed down. So that might be a great way to make a rehearsal track for your band that you could then, send to your band ahead of time so they could practice it. But what I want is I want all the individual tracks. So when I hit export, it's going to save a WAV file for every single instrument here. And I'm going to be able to save that as my custom arrangement. I'm not going to save it now because it just takes too much time to do, at least for the video here. But that would be a great way for if you're customizing your multi-tracks to be the arrangement that you usually do at your church. This is how you could bring them in, customize them, export them as brand new files that then you could use again later when you're building another worship set. And you don't have to do this every single time, all right? So you could just do all individual tracks. Let's say you wanted to create a rehearsal track for your band. Well, what I would do is I would, customize your track like this, and then I would go ahead and what we need to do is bring in the click file. So I'm going to go to Create, Insert Audio Track, and we're going to rename this and call it Click. And let's go ahead and open up this browser here, and we're going to bring in the click file that was provided with the song. And let's hit play and see what that sounds like.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
Because you're not able to export the Ableton click.
Verse 2, 3, 4.
Now for this rehearsal track, I want to pan everything. So I'm going to go to Session View, which gives me a mixer, and I'm going to pan things. So I'm going to select my click and my cues. I'm going to pan them left.
Pre-chorus 2, 3, 4.
And then all my instruments, I'm going to pan right. And if you're making a custom
Chorus
rehearsal
2,
track,
3, 4.
you could turn things up or turn things down, things that you want to, highlight for your band. Great. So now I've got this rehearsal track that I could send to my band. And to export it, you just do Command A, go to File, Export, and this time we're going to export the master, which means it's going to give us one mix of all of my instruments together. When I hit export, it's going to give me one WAV file that I could then, convert to an MP3 or something, and then send it to my band to practice with. So that's how you can customize an arrangement. It's also how you can use the loop bracket to, delete or duplicate time. And it's also how you can use Arrangement View to, create a set list and run your tracks from Arrangement View by using these little markers, by adding markers for your song. Now, let's just say that you're wanting to use Session View with the different sections of your song like this. Well, one way you can do it is, first thing we need to do is consolidate. So we need to, all those little breaks we made in the audio file, we need to kind of fix those or glue them all together. So I'm going to do a Command A and then right click and go to Consolidate. And what it's going to do, and hopefully this doesn't take too long, is it's going to glue together all of the cuts that I made, all the edits. Oh good, it didn't take too long. So now it's all one audio file of my new arrangement. And now what you can do to bring these into Arrangement View as different sections is highlight them like this. So I'm going to highlight the intro and just do Copy. And then I'm going to go to Session View. And right here, I'm going to right click. I'm going to call this Intro. I'm going to right click and go to Paste. And it pasted in the intro section of my track. Let's go ahead and bring in the verse. So I'm going to right click and call this verse. And let's go back to Arrangement View. And we're going to highlight the verse like this. And just do a Command C to copy, or right click, copy. Go to Session View. and paste. All right, and let's do the chorus too. So I'm going to right click, go to chorus, and let's go ahead and highlight the chorus like this. Copy, paste. And now in session view, I can control my tracks by using the scene launches over here. So I can go to intro, and let's just say I actually want to add one before,
Verse 2,
and this will just
3,
be the
4.
start. Okay, we'll just hit start, and what this is going to do is it's going to go ahead and just queue up my click. So I can set the tempo by going to edit launch tempo and change it to 99. And the reason it's not starting is because there's nothing in this row for Ableton to play. So I'm going to go to create, insert MIDI track, and we're just going to add a blank MIDI clip. Just something for it to play. So it started that. And let's go ahead and assign Looptimus to those different sections of my song. I'm going to go to MIDI and just click on start. Let's go to song 2. It's going to be, start is going to be that button, intro will be this button, verse will be this button, and chorus will be this button. And let's leave that, and now I can start my song. And when I'm ready, I can go to the intro. Your drummer clicks you off. You're the intro. Now let's go to the verse. Let's go to the chorus. I can mute that click if I don't want that click. Let's go to the verse or the intro. So that's how you can break your song up into sections and then bring it into session view. Another way to do that would be to highlight a section like this and go to File, Export. And we're going to export all individual tracks. And what it's going to do is it's going to give us wave files for every track, but it's going to only export this little sliver of time. So I would click export and I would probably name it chorus. And so all these audio files would be the chorus section of my song, and then those sections I would import into session view. Something else that's really cool about the Looptimus controller that I'd like to show you is a mode called pad mode. And with pad mode, you can actually use Looptimus to play piano with your feet. So what we're going to do is we're going to just kick into pad mode by holding the stop button down for a few seconds. And we're going to go to pad mode. And in pad mode, you've got the next and previous buttons, and they change the key of the song. So let's just say you're going to go to the key of C. Now, buttons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 play the 1 chord of the key of C, the 2 chord, the 3 chord, the 4 chord. There aren't any sounds inside of Looptimus. The sounds are going to be a software instrument inside of Ableton Live. So you can do that by just going to Insert or Create, Insert MIDI track. And on that MIDI track, you can find a sound that you like by going to Sounds and then choosing different pads. There's a lot of different sounds you could choose from. All right. I already have one already made. It's going to be like I think it has a VST on it. But when I hit 1, it's supposed to play, but the reason it's not playing is probably because I don't have Looptimus set up to track. So go to Live Preferences, and under Live Preferences, you'll go to MIDI, and you'll need to find your device and turn on this button that says Track. So there's 3 buttons here. There's Track, Sync, and Remote. If you were to plug in any MIDI device, you'd see this. Track means you're going to use that device to play an instrument live, like a piano, keyboard. Sync means you're connecting 2 different MIDI devices together, which we don't need for right now. Remote, you want to have that on if you're going to use it to trigger tracks, which is what we were doing earlier. So we had remote turned on. We're going to play a pad, so I'm going to turn track on. And now let's go ahead and hit play on, let's hit button 1. You'll see that it's playing my software instrument as a pad. Now the octave is really low, so let's go ahead and change the octave by holding this down. And let's go a little higher as an octave. Let's go a little lower, actually. So you can kind of use pads with your feet to set up a song. Pad mode's a really cool feature of Ableton Live. And again, we're just triggering a software instrument. There's no sounds inside of Looptimus. It's just being used as a MIDI keyboard, but for your feet. And then you can hit stop and it'll stop the pad. So that's how you can build a worship set in Ableton Live. Now you can go to loopcommunity.com and search for any tracks that you need to use in Ableton. Again, you can buy tracks. You can buy Ableton from our store. If you just click up in the top right corner, go to store, and go to software, and you can buy Ableton Live Intro. That really has all you need for what we did today. If you're wanting more than 4 outputs, then you're going to need standard. And if you're going to need more than 8 rows, so more songs like this, if you're going to need more than 8, which most people don't because you don't have a worship set more than 8 songs, most people. But if you need more than 8, then you're going to need Live Standard. All right? Now, you can go through the site and you can find tracks that you like. Here's a community track. For You Make Me Brave. If you're looking for patches, you can click on the patches link. We have another way of running tracks, and it's called Prime. And this is an app that we developed for iPhone and iPad, and it's a free app that is basically Ableton made very easy. You can customize the arrangement of your song, create set lists, change the volume of all your tracks. You can change the key and tempo right within the app very, very easily. You can loop sections. You can customize the arrangement of your song. You can use an interface and send multi-outs. You can use Looptimus with the app. You can do basically everything I showed you. And it's a free app, and it's really easy to use. So I would check out, if you're not wanting to dive into Ableton Live right away, maybe you can start by using Prime just to get started. It might be just a good way to get your band used to using tracks, used to using a click track. You can do a lot of cool things in this app. So what I would do is go to the App Store, download Prime. It's free. There's a free song inside the app already, so you can use it to kind of play around and try it and see if you like it. The other thing is that Ableton Live, if you go to ableton.com, you can download a free 30-day trial of Ableton Live and give it a shot and see if you like that. But these are 2 really great options for you, either the app or Ableton Live. If you're interested in Looptimus, you can go to looptimus.com or click on the link at the top of Loop Community. And you can get Looptimus. There's also some videos that show you about how you can use it for program changes or pad mode or using MIDI notes. And then if you're also looking for patches for songs, click on patches. And we have a whole section of our site that's dedicated to sounds and pad sounds and synth sounds that you can use in Ableton Live, Omnisphere, Logic. So if you're into that kind of thing, check out soundpark.com, or you can click on the patches link at the top of our website. Again, if you want some more training videos, go to Learn at the bottom of our site. And we have some training videos here that you can watch to learn how to create your own click and cues and have a lot of fun with running tracks live. The premium tracks on our site are really great because those are re-recorded in the studio by our bands, and they sound just like the original, and it's a pretty affordable way to get going. If you want the premium tracks for Ableton Live, it's $24.99. If you want it just for our app Prime, it's $12.99. The community tracks are $20 for Ableton Live and $10 for our Prime app. And the masters are $34.99 for Ableton Live and $20 for our Prime app. So, check out Loop Community. We're so glad you're with us. Get your tracks at Loop Community. Have fun with Ableton Live. If you ever need anything at all, you can get one-on-one training or check out our future videos that we're going to have on Ableton Live. We're going to get into more depth. We're going to talk about how to create your own tracks We're going to do a whole class on how to create your own tracks that then maybe you could upload and contribute like these guys here. You can upload them and sell them on Loop Community and make some extra cash. So we're going to do a whole class on how to do that. We're going to also do a whole class on how to use Arrangement View in building a set list. I showed you a little bit of that today. But hopefully this overview helps you understand how to use Ableton Live in your live performance. My name is Matt McCoy. I'm the founder of loopcommunity.com. I'm an Ableton certified trainer, and I'm glad you joined me today. If you have any questions at all, go ahead and type them in to the comment box on this video. Thanks and have a great day. loopcommunity.com